Hello everyone. We are looking at Objective 6 notes on compound inequalities for the class Algebra 2, and this is the Algebra 1 review. So we are going to look at compound inequalities, and the central question is how do we solve and graph compound inequalities? And so go ahead and take a minute, write down what you do know about compound inequalities. Pause the video now. And then once you're done, go ahead and start back up. So a compound inequality is the joining of two inequalities with the word and or. Okay. So we're going to take a look at some compound inequalities, and we're going to solve and graph each of them. So when we first look at this compound inequality, this is an and compound inequality because it is written as one continuous inequality. Okay, so it's 4 is less than n is less than or equal to 2. So we can just graph this if you're comfortable with it. Otherwise, if you want to split it, you can split it into two inequalities. And so we use the word and then we always repeat the middle. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and label our graph here. So 0, 2, 4, 6. And this inequality says that n is greater than 4 and less than or equal to 2. So we're going to put a closed circle at 2 because it's less than or equal to, an open circle at 4, and then we're going to shade. Now usually n is less than or equal to 2, so that means all numbers that are smaller than 2. Okay, and n is greater than 4, so all numbers that are greater than 4. All right, now usually what I just caught here was that this is actually an or compound inequality. Okay, so when they shade away from each other, it's actually an or, and usually those are not written combined like that, but in this case they are. So, okay, let's take a look at number 2. In this one, this is another or compound inequality, and v is greater than 0, so we can label this 0. And we'll label this -1, -2, -4. So we need to label both sides, okay? And so we're going to graph v is greater than 0, so an open circle bigger than 0. So we're going to shade to the right. And then v is less than -2, so an open circle at -2, and we're going to shade to the left. All right, and make sure you shade in your arrows at the end as well. This one is an or, so like boat oars, if you are riding in a boat, okay, your boat oars go out into the water, so they go opposite directions. So there you go, lovely little picture for you. All right, let's take a look at number 3. So a compound inequality, but this time we need to solve for the variables before we can graph. So we're going to look at just this inequality first, and we're going to solve for x. So we're going to add 2 to both sides, and we get 4x is greater than -3. We're going to divide both sides by 4, and x is going to be greater than or equal to -3/4 or -0.75. Okay, this is split by an or. So then our second equation is x minus 1, so we'll add 1 to both sides, is less than or equal to 6, so x is less than or equal to -5. So we're going to graph, let's see here, we can label our number line 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, -1, -2, -3, -4, -5, -7. Those negatives took space, so I'm just going to go every other. And we're going to do a closed circle at -5. And x is less than -5, so all the numbers that are smaller than -5, which is more negative. And x is greater than or equal to, or I'm sorry, just greater than. negative 3/4, which is 0.75. So an open circle at not quite 1, and we're going to shade to the right. Okay, so there's number 3. Let's take a look at number 4. So this compound inequality should be an and, because it's written as one continuous compound inequality, and you can split it. Okay, so you can split it so that you have negative 2k minus 1 is less than or equal to negative k plus 1. And when I say split it, you have to write the whole middle both times, okay? And you can write negative k plus 1 is less than or equal to negative 3k minus 1. So then you're going to solve for k in both cases, and then rewrite your compound inequality. Okay, so we're going to solve for k in each one of these inequalities. So the first thing I'm going to do actually is move my 2k over here. And so I've got negative 1 is less than or equal to negative k plus 2k is 1k plus 1. And then I'm going to subtract 1 from both sides. And I've got negative 2 is less than or equal to k. Okay, on the other side, I'm going to add my 3k over here. And I've got negative k plus 3k is 2k, plus 1 is less than or equal to negative 1. And then I'm going to subtract 1 from both sides. I've got 2k is less than or equal to negative 2. Divide everything by 2, and k is less than or equal to negative 1. So let's go ahead and graph these before we can see if we can put it back together. So I've got negative 1, negative 2, so 0, negative 1, negative 2. And I've got a closed circle at negative 1. And this says that k is smaller than negative 1, so we're going to shade to the left. And on this case, I've got a closed circle at negative 2. And it says that k is bigger than negative 2. So this is a true and, which means that k is between negative 1 and negative 2. So it is bigger than negative 2 and less than negative 1. And so we can write it as a compound inequality like that. Okay. So it's number 4. Let's take a look over here at number 5. It says, now write number 4 step by step as if you were writing an algebraic textbook and justify each step. Okay, so the first thing that we are going to do is we're going to copy the problem and then split it. So negative 2k minus 1 is less than or equal to negative k plus 1 is less than or equal to negative 3k minus 1. And that was the given problem, so we'll just call it the given. Okay, so now we're going to split this. So split the compound inequality into 2 compound inequalities. Okay, and we know that this is an and. So we're going to say negative k plus 1 is less than or equal to negative 3k minus 1. Okay, so split the compound inequality. And then we're going to solve each inequality. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is add 2k to both sides. So we get negative 1 is less than or equal to k plus 1. Then we're going to subtract 1. And we get negative 2 is less than or equal to k. Okay, so then this is step 1, this is step 2. Let's number things because inequalities aren't super. Okay, and then so step 3 is all of this. So we are solving each inequality. Okay, so we're going to solve the other inequality as well. So we're going to add 3k Negative k plus 3k is 2k, plus 1 is less than or equal to negative 1. Subtract 1, 2k is less than or equal to negative 2, divide by 2. K is less than or equal to negative 1, okay? And then we're going to combine that back into a compound inequality. So write two inequalities. As one compound inequality. And then we're going to graph the inequalities. Well, the compound inequality. Okay? All right, and then you can see the graph on the other page. All right, let's take a look at number 6. So it says, whoops. When Sir Isaac Newton was in quarantine during the bubonic plague in the 1660s, he got distracted playing with a prism. Ever heard of light refraction? And he made a mistake on his algebra homework. Explain the error and then fix the mistake in a different color. Okay, so I'm gonna back some of this up so that it's not messing with our notes here. And we're gonna look at this inequality. So it looks like Sir Isaac Newton first took this inequality. 44 is greater than negative 3k plus 11 is greater than or equal to 32. And it looks like he split it, and let's make sure that he split it correctly. Okay, there I go with those crazy pens again. So 44 is greater than negative 3k plus 11. That looks good. And negative 3k plus 11 is greater than or equal to 32. That looks good. Okay, so he repeated this twice, which is good. And then the first step on this left side would be to subtract 11. So 44 minus 11 is 33. That looks good. Is less than negative 3k. Okay, and on this side, if we subtract 11, we've got 32 minus 11 is 21. So that looks good. So this step and this step, I don't know why that won't erase. Okay, so this step looks good, this step looks good. So then he divides by a negative 3 over here. He gets negative 11 is greater than k. Okay, now the problem that I see there is that he forgot to flip his sign because he divided by a negative. So there would be the error on that side. And let's see if he made the same error on the other side. So if we divide by a negative 3 over here, it looks like he did not flip his sign. So again, it's k is less than or equal to negative 7, because 21 divided by negative 3 is negative 7. Okay. All right, so the essential question, how do we solve and graph inequalities, compound inequalities? Okay, so solve two inequalities. And graph each inequality. Okay, if it's an and, it should graph inwards, something like this. Okay, and if it is an or, then it should probably graph out like this. Now that's not a guarantee. You have to be sure to check your work. All right. Okay. All right, we're gonna stop there, and I hope that you guys have a great day. Bye.